best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
Welcome back to the Hishaku Hideout, a weekly podcast where we talk about the latest chapter and everything Kagurabachi. I'm here with Dice.
Yo.
And today we're getting into chapter 98. And before we begin, I'd like to have a moment of silence for our comrade Hishaku. It's so hard to say goodbye. Take it away, Dice.
Oh man, 10 out of 10 by the way. Yeah man, well, Hishaku, you know, we'll get into that later, but it's not looking good for him, and all because of our boy, well, not our boy, right, but he does have, you know, put up a good showing this chapter. Ikuto Hagiwara. What are you thinking, man?
The titular character of this chapter. We didn't expect much. I mean, we did see him in the panel of like the elite commanders, and you know, so we knew that he was going to play a part. You know, the speculation of like his homie's mask was always a big thing. And I think this chapter may not be as like exciting as the prior chapters, but you know, there is good characterization within this chapter. You know, I used the word lackluster originally to describe it, but I think, you know, we can't have every chapter being like this, like, you know, crazy, you know, all this action going on type of thing. You know, there's going to be chapters like this, and I think this like sets a precedent going forward about how Hokusono brings characters back, you know?
Oh, for sure. And he's done it before, and again, he just proves that like there's purpose behind that, which we'll definitely talk about more, you know, during the episode, because Hagiwara was really a character that I'm sure might have his fans, sure, but I think generally speaking, people didn't really care too much about, right? And so anytime that you can bring back a character that wasn't really too relevant or too important or didn't really have too much meat on the bone, anytime you can bring him back and tell something more, tell perhaps even a deeper story, it's just, you know, you definitely get points for that. And anytime you do that in a chapter that, like you said, is considered kind of a lull just because of all the bigger things that are going on, it just really proves that, I guess, even not at, I don't want to say at its slowest, because, you know, the story isn't over yet, so that it isn't fair to say, but it does seem that even these kind of slower chapters or chapters that kind of step away for the most part from the overarching events, even though at the end it kind of, you know, we go back to Hishaku, this is still quality writing 100%. Like there's this, you know, we'll get into like the recurring theme here that again we previously see and is just hammered home and tackles from a different angle here with Hagiwara's character.
Yeah, I want to say that you know, you said like chapters that don't have much meat on the bone. That's pretty crazy because this dude ain't got no legs, and you talking about meat on the bone. Chill. Poor little tink.
Chill, man.
Let me chill on this guy. I need to know. You know, this guy with no legs showed up before Kazane showed back up. By the way, poor little tink.
Yeah.
Crazy. And I need to know who's GOAT. If Hagiwara is your GOAT, stand up in the comments.
Yeah.
I need to know. I need to know whose GOAT is this. He came in though is like a smoke demon. I gotta say, like, you know, talk about the characterization was really nice. And we see that the reason why he holds that mask so dear, it's, you know, it's definitely, it's tough. You know what I mean? That is, we're seeing like the PTSD of battle. He had the unfortunate like mission to have to go up against an enchanted blade wielder, and they were put together specifically to go against the Cloud Gouger. But you know, it's unfortunate that Sojo witnessed like Chihiro and kind of got inspiration from Chihiro. Because if Sojo never like fought Chihiro before the anti-Cloud Gouger squad, but you know, they still knew the information about the Cloud Gouger like from Chihiro, they probably would have won. But since Sojo was able to like synchronize deeper with the blade and cloak himself and all that, you know, they lost. And I don't think this guy is like gonna crash out on Chihiro or anything like that. because we see his sense of duty is, basically taking out these people. He's just crashing out, and I mean, rightfully so. I mean, the guy really it's a tough situation.
I think what's easy to resonate with is this idea that he blames himself. I don't think we'll see anything like him going at Chihiro because he very clearly like blames himself. And we like to meme on the Kamunabi here, and deservedly so. But for once, I kind of felt bad for like a Kamunabi member, like genuinely, because even this chapter, at the beginning of this chapter, even the chapter title, which I told you I immediately temper my expectations because Hagiwara, like, okay, we're definitely going to kind of step away from what's going on, at least for a minute, to kind of develop this character further. And we got Kiri had like a badass introduction. Natsuki had a badass introduction. And here comes this guy introduced as like the worthless commander. And like no quotes or anything, just straight up the worthless commander. And immediately I'm like, okay, easy. Like this is just easy dunk for us here at the Hishaku Hideout, right? And as the like chapter progresses and he's literally like, oh, like, we obviously had already known what happens to these guys, but just seeing how he was so confident about being able to take care of his squad mates and how that ultimately is the reason why he puts all of that on himself, and it leads to like him pretty much like, creating this figment of his imagination that is like his dead homie, right? And I'll just keep calling him that, really. But for a minute I really felt like genuinely bad about this guy. And again, we had seen like with Natsuki and Uruha and even Samura, like these different ways to, or like this different perspective of how these warriors reacted to war, right? And here we see from another angle this guy, which I think is like very clearly the worst case scenario, right? Like you said, clearly like full on PTSD. Like he's just, the way I'll let you kind of get into like the whole doctor and how he, talks about him. But what Hokuzono does this chapter for Hagiwara to me is really, really, really cool, because a character that I could frankly speaking just give zero fucks about, honestly. Here he comes and has like a very cool redeeming moment at the same, all while Hokuzono paints this very just powerful picture in terms of, again, his story and his guilt. And yeah, I could ramble on it because I guess I was just a bit impressed. I guess I told you, but like I immediately tempered my expectations and just was kind of blown away, frankly, because yeah,
I think it's good. Like what Hokuzono was able to do with his character. When it's all said and done, without a chapter like this, we probably wouldn't really give Hagiwara, like, would not come up in conversation when talking about Kagurabachi, when it's all said and done. But now a chapter like this, kind of recontextualizes like the struggles of like battle and war. But he also made a big move this chapter, and it was done in the sense of like his power set, like it works within his power set. It's kind of insane to think about. He's able to like manipulate or like essentially run like an X-ray machine through the entire building, or that's what it seemed like. That's what he was doing essentially. And he could pinpoint it. He could pinpoint exactly who had the scroll, even though the other guy, the security guy, he couldn't. So he came in at a clutch time, made a big move that is gonna be important going forward. So he's more like, not just, Kabunabi fodder that, got killed early by an enchanted blade or got maimed by an enchanted blade. He now plays a pivotal part in allowing, or presumably, Chihiro and Samura, making it easier for them to enter. Because that's the whole thing. Chihiro and Samura is like the saving grace of this like arc now. They have to come in. Yura's gonna get his way if he gets to the Sword Master. It's just about how quick can Chihiro and or Samura, because we don't know if they're gonna split up or if they're just gonna go directly to wherever they need to go. So it's gonna be interesting to see that. So and you did mention like how Hokuzono brought him back, and talking about the precedent of reintroducing characters going forward. How he's already done that, sure. But now, like when things are getting more serious, we don't know if like the Sazanabe members that were alive actually might come back and help Hakuri or something like that. You know, like that's a very like far out there theory, but it's not impossible. Like we can expect Hokuzono to reintroduce characters, because he's not afraid to do that. I just think it's hilarious to do it. No legs showed up before Kazane. Oh, and by the way, you did mention the doctor. I'm sorry about I forgot to tell
go ahead.
The doctor. That doctor ain't shit. I'll tell you that. He looks like he ain't shit too. I know a couple ain't shit doctors and they all look like him. He's like basically saying because of his psychological state, he still has like his like sense of justice. Like he doesn't, he blames himself. So the thing he wants like revenge on is the Hishaku or the these people that created like these circumstances. He blames himself, but he's not taking care of himself. He's psychologically not all there in the head, but he still knows who to target in battle. You know what I mean? He's not gonna pull a sword saint on anybody. He's specifically or technically I guess that extreme bias towards the Hishaku might be, but we won't get into that. And we see that he does just genuinely do his duty as a Kabunabe elite commander and, makes a big play, only going at the Hishaku. I just think it's fucked up how the doctor's like, oh yeah, he's like basically, the perfect soldier right now. There's no one more suited for battle than him because he doesn't care about himself. He'll throw his life on the line. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if he dies. He wants to die.
Well, like,
or at least, like he ain't taking care of himself,
Well, meaning like it feels like the Kamunabi just never do themselves any favors because it very much even though like genuinely speaking, I take obviously like I at least personally I'm just joking around because I get what like the doctor is saying and I'll get into it now, but this idea that he's like, no, I mean I was saying that he wasn't fit, but no, it turns out that he's perfectly fit for battle. It's just like, here go the Kamunabi, just like, just throw him out in the battlefield again. But no, again, the reason why this all works to me, and we'll get into the vessel reveal and kind of the handling of that whole thing, but the reason why this whole chapter does work for me, even though it's not like a crazy 10 out of 10 chapter, is that it makes sense what the doctor says and why Ikuto is genuinely like fit for battle, at least under the current circumstances, because the trauma and the PTSD has led him to create, like I said, this figment of his imagination that keeps his sorcery constantly going. And so he's unconsciously like now reached a state where he doesn't have to like activate his sorcery. And that's what we kind of get this chapter.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that sorcerers that are just able to be kind of like naturally turned on, they just have it like that. And that's what Ikuto is able to do, right? And what makes him really special, and at least for this chapter, right? Like don't worry, I'm not Ikuto ain't my goat now, right? But I do want to give him a lot of credit because I think there's a good chance that we won't get anything more from him. And I'll just say, man, there's always like a lot of talk and we always dunk on it, like this whole thing about I even forgot his name, MVP from a previous arc or whatever.
Ikura.
We talk about like him or like, the Masumi called him the MVP. And I think you brought up a really good point. Whoever lets Chihiro and Samura in, and it very likely will be Ikuto here, like that's the real MVP of this arc. And like that is worthy of the title of MVP, especially again when you like take in consideration the whole backstory behind him. This is a guy, like, especially even though I do agree, I think Pishaku's gonna put up a big of a fight, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Ikuto who manages to put him down with this crazy sorcery that he has going on now. And if he does that, he will very much be, and deservedly so, the MVP of this arc.
Yeah, and excuse me. I think you brought up a good point. Like, I didn't really do a good job of like talking much about his sorcery. Like the fact that he's been unconsciously using his sorcery is giving him kind of like, I think about like Demon Slayer when the total concentration breathing like Tanjiro does that like all the time, and that strengthens him, almost in the sense of him always using his sorcery. He's got this like like sense of his sorcery that's like almost like a part of him. It's like a tangible part of, you know, without having to activate it. It's almost like he's given it its own personality by doing this. So it's you know, just no activation. He could just use it. Like, he really is like kind of cracked too. That's a dope sorcery, that Iron Sand. Yeah. Like, he's like the third Kazekage from Naruto. You know, third Kazekage had legs though, but we won't talk about that. You know, I got to throw my shots at the Kabunabi when I can.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yo, he did come in clutch, and I do think Hishaku's cooked. I think it's just about him trying to hold on, unless there's something like he has a sorcery that, you know, allows him to heal, or, you know, Yura's made like I think that patch on his face, I think that, I don't know if that's just a design choice, but I feel like that's gonna matter. Like, he's got like a souk in the mouth under there. I don't know. Other than that though, I think I think he's cooked though. And it's just about how long can he hold out. I think Ikuto is gonna die because his homie with the mask is, you know. And this is, by the way, I did like how Hokuzono has been playing with the where every person is on the floors, because we know for a fact that Ikuto is underneath Hishaku. You know what I mean? Like, we're aware of that unconsciously, just because of Hishaku got sent flying through the wall, whereas the other ones went out and, well, I mean, I guess they technically were on the same floor, but he when he showed Urin and Bingo, you know, I'm pretty sure he maybe labeled them at the floor underneath where Hishaku was. I have to go back and look at that, but other than that, the thing with the scroll reveal, that's what I want to talk about. You know, we talked about Ikuto enough. How do you feel about the reveal, like, being, I felt it was a little bit jarring, like the mystery of the scroll being like, which was the barrier vessel, and then the very next chapter it like gets resolved. It just felt kind of like very like quick and jarring for me. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I can see that, especially, you know, we constantly talk about the week-to-week experiences, you know, keeping that in consideration. It definitely does feel like if you immediately bought into that thing, like that, not thing, but, you know, that idea as a plot line, that mystery, I'm sorry, if you bought into that mystery as like a plot line that was gonna, you know, was gonna play out for a couple of chapters, then I can see why you would be disappointed. Me personally, because of how the traitor mystery was resolved, which, you know, I've admitted I thought was a bit underwhelming, though, you know, I do think that there's still some time for that to age and see how the story kind of, you know, what it does with Kazan as a traitor. Because of that, and this being a mystery that wasn't really set up, I just didn't put too much stock in. And when it was revealed this chapter to be exactly who we thought it was, then yeah, because I've said this before, I said it in the previous episode actually, but I suspected that if this reveal was handled anything like the traitor reveal, then yeah, it was already straightforward. It was never really supposed to be a mystery for us. Maybe for the characters in the story, yeah, but for us, like, the pieces were already there. Yeah, it might have been obvious, right? But I just think it was, I didn't mind the way it was handled. I'm kind of stumbling over my words here, but I personally didn't mind.
Yeah, and I think you are right, you know, because like the fandom chooses like certain things to like really hark on and like linger. You know, there's certain characters that, you know, the fandom may deem more important than they actually are. There may be like plot lines that, you know, they're very like engaging to like discuss, or there's like so many possibilities that there's people that get, the fandom like builds up the fervor of certain like these like plot lines to the point where it becomes large. The conversation about the thing becomes larger than what the thing actually is in universe. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So like, it's about you know, looking at this, and you know, I think you had a good way to view the barrier vessel mystery, because it's not really. Hokuzono basically laid it out in front of us that it is Hishaku. Yeah, sure, other characters do have a possibility with it, but I mean, even people who didn't think it was Hishaku, they have to admit that it was more than likely looked or portrayed to be him. You know?
Yeah. Again, it was like, for me, it really felt like the Kazan thing. Like when the traitor was revealed, I've said this before, guys like you, me, and Shiny, we didn't buy it. We were like, nah, like it's our expectations are going to be subverted, yada, yada, yada. And what happened next chapter? No, it was exactly who we told you, or, from Hokuzono's perspective, exactly who I told you it was last chapter. There wasn't anything behind it. And you and me talked about it before we started recording. It seems like, and we'll see what happens to Hishaku next chapter and how much more there is to that. But it does really feel like this arc, there hasn't been much, everything has been laid out in front of us in terms of like what you see is what you get. It doesn't feel like things have been set up too meticulously. Like it seems like everything that has happened in this arc are things that have been set up previously. It doesn't really feel, maybe I'm forgetting a couple of things or whatever, and this might sound like a knock, but it really isn't. I just think that Hokuzono has taken like a different approach to how he lays things in this arc, and maybe it's because of all that's going on with Yura that it just makes sense that like what you see is what you're getting, right? Besides, I guess an exception to that would be the Yura thing, but again, that was previously set up, right? It's happened, like that was set up during the Rakuzaichi. But I guess even then, it would be the one thing in this arc that kind of stands out as like a big reveal.
I mean, think of it like this too. Yura wanting to, like, what was Yura's real objective? Yura outright told, like, the deal was with Samura to kill the Sword Saint. Like that was the plan. Remember? They were like, kill it. So if that's the plan, Yura told us outright what he wanted to do. Mm-hmm. Even when he breaks into Kaminabi headquarters, even when he uses the Magatsumi's power, the fandom is still making theories about what he wants to do. You know what I mean? And then the next chapter, Yura outright says, I'm gonna come kill you. Like, until Hokuzono like really like makes it abundantly clear like what something is, the fandom is gonna extrapolate whatever like they possibly could to make the theory that they want to seem like plausible.
Yeah, I fell into that.
Like we all do. It's normal. It's fandom fervor. It's just hype, and you get this cool theory. You want it to be right. We all want our theories to be. We have a cool theory. It'd be cool to be correct. So like I just I just hate to see when a theory someone has doesn't come true. That taints their experience with the source material. You know what I mean? They just don't. They just have. It seems like they almost like hate read to a certain point. Like you see it so much. JJK had it really bad. I mean, all big series kind of have that. In Kagurabachi, I just don't want to see like the fandom get to that point. Because there's a lot of discussion about the barrier vessel, and it's already like wrapped up essentially. I mean, we do know who it was.
Yeah. Again, I didn't really feel any way about it because I didn't put too much stock into it. And if anything, I actually feel like this might be a good time or not a good time. It's, I guess, the only time. It's the time for Hishaku to really prove that he's capable of something, because though it was revealed in the website that Yura just straight up lied to him about him being the strongest, I would like.
No, that's an edit. That's a meme, bro. Somebody edited that. That's not what he said.
What? No, there's no way.
Yeah, bro, that's edited.
There's no way. Are you serious?
Bro, on gang. I'll keep talking. I'll prove it to you.
Well, anyways, I fell into it. I took it at face value because it just completely made sense. I didn't read it as a joke, but
it does. It does, though.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Anyways, I just would like to see some fight, right? Especially if that isn't true, right? Like even more reason to kind of expect Hishaku to at least, do something, right? Because it feels like at least every Hishaku member has had one moment, you know, even if it's
No,
like
you're
what
right.
we've seen from Bingo and Urang, right? I would like to see Hishaku do something. If not, he was literally just like a sacrificial lamb, which would be crazy. But yeah, we'll see, man.
A member of the Hishaku involved in the attack on Kabanabi headquarters possesses such strength that Yura declared him the strongest of the Hishaku. That's all it says.
No, oh my god, dude, I've been running as like it's been officially confirmed that Yura straight up lied to him in like my videos and shit. Okay.
And I when I DM'd you that, I DM'd you that, I remember we talked about it in DMs, and I thought you was just memeing along. I was like, oh, you going with the meme. But like, Yura needed someone, a sucker, to basically surrender their life to give them a way to keep, to affect the barrier. So it does make sense that Yura would gaslight him no matter what. Maybe he does have a strong ability though. What if he is like, this crazy ability that allows him to heal, and it's hard to actually put him down? We don't know. And then now I think that's what the conversation from who's the barrier vessel is now going to turn into, what's going to happen? Does he have a sorcery that allows him to maintain functions and going forward? Like, that's to be, only time will tell.
Yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate you debunking that for me, because I had just completely ran with that. Like, and it just made sense. Like, to me, even like, I can't say that it was like confirmed, but it still very much makes sense that Yura straight up lied to him. Like, do we really think Hishaku's the strongest? Like, no, clearly not, right? But I do know that was now definitely a meme. And even then, I completely agree that he was just gaslighting him. But like I said, I think it's more of a reason to now expect something from him, which is ultimately like my whole point. And it is what I want, right? I do want to see something from him. And I do think that, like you said, I do expect him to have like a unique power that allows him to not be exactly like the primary barrier vessel. I think Hishaku might have something up his sleeve. What it is or how that might affect his performance or what is going on, I don't really know. So, do with that what you will. But yeah, Hishaku, I guess I have some stocks in him now.
Yeah, I mean, like the Kamanabi, like I said this earlier to you, the Kamanabi are strong but stupid, and the Hishaku are not all that strong but smart. That's how it really is starting to play out, low key. Obviously they have some dogs. They got dogs on both sides. Like Hokuto, like he's a smoke demon and all that. But it just seems like the portrayal of like the Hishaku in battle, aside from Hokuto, really, because even Yura's been getting, he's not a master swordsman. He's been keeping up with them, of course, which is impressive in his own right. And now he's using the Magatsumi's power. But his thing is more like his like willpower and his like, how sharp he is. He's just a very impressive, like an impressive villain, how he handles things, but I mean, that's really it for the chapter. This is like I said, it wasn't too big of a chapter for me. I do appreciate the characterization of Hagiwara. His ability is pretty dope. Like I said, that's a pretty crazy ability. It could be cracked, but I think he is getting cooked too.
Yeah.
What do you think what's happening going forward?
I mean, look, man, I know I've said this before, but did anybody expect that we would be like stepping into a chapter like this one last week? So I'll say this again. I have no idea where Hokuzono's taking us next chapter. Well, okay. Hishaku. Does Hishaku do something? Does he not? That's what I'm expecting, right? I guess that's just the one thing, but that's fairly obvious.
All right, let me ask you a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
And this is for the comment section as well. Do you think we see Chihiro and Samura next chapter?
I mean, no, because it like we've been saying that we think we're gonna see them like for what 4 chapters now at least. So like it almost
next
feels
chapter,
like
they're coming.
Yeah, like probability wise, it just makes sense for me to say that I don't think we could see them at the end of the chapter. Like a couple of chapters ago, we got them like on their way, and then we find out that obviously they're banging on the barrier. So maybe next chapter at the end they finally break through the barrier, which means Hishaku would have bit the dust, presumably. I don't know, but do we cut to Yura? Like, do we cut back to Azami and Yura before we cut back to like Chihiro and Samura? Because if we go to Chihiro and Samura first, then I think there's a good chance that, like you had said, like Chihiro and Samura pulls up on like Azami's corpse or some shit like that, you know? I've been saying that I think they're gonna get there too late, and with every chapter that passes and the Kamunabi have to rely on guys like Ikuto, it does. I get that feeling even more and more and more that Chihiro and Samura just won't really make it in time. I don't mean in regards to the Sword Saint. I think something else will unfold regarding him. I don't think Sword Saint is gonna die anytime soon, but I do think guys like Azami, I do think there's gonna be heavy casualties that Chihiro and Samura just won't be able to prevent.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think we will see. I'm gonna say it. I think we will see Chihiro and Samura at the end of the next chapter. Personally.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
That's my thing. And maybe I just sound like a gambler, just like most gamblers quit that whole thing.
I think that's pretty much at least all from me in regards to that. Really, I don't know if there's anything in regards to Ikuto. One thing we didn't really touch. We talked about the whole squad mates thing, but I think what adds like a whole wrinkle to his character, which I probably should have given a bit more weight early in the episode, is the fact that like he knew these guys for a long time, right? And we don't really think about that when we talk about like these characters. I mean, it's there, right? Like we know the relationship that like Samura and Uruha have, and like that's obviously years of camaraderie. Natsuki and Uruha is more of like a meme or whatever, but just the sad reality of like having comrades, and like again, I'm maybe just giving Ikuto, or at least Hokuzono's writing with Ikuto, a lot of flowers here, because I definitely felt like that whole thing about like these are guys, especially like his buddy, just like what seemed like to have been his childhood friend, or no, what clearly was his childhood friend.
Yeah, 5.
Yeah, like imagine like you get all your homies killed, and again, I know we talked about it early on, but it's just something to kind of sit on a little bit, and I appreciated this chapter.
Yeah, he definitely.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying he's definitely placing too much of a burden on himself. But I think that he's someone who had like a strong sense of justice, doing the right thing and protecting innocent civilians by putting him and his team's life on the line. And he said that his words were, "I'll make sure that none of you die before me." But now he's basically the last one standing. That is a heavy, that's a heavy cross to bear that I don't think any individual, no matter how strong or mental fortitude, you may have, losing an entire, your entire squad essentially, and your best, a good friend or best friend since 5 years old, that's not something that can be easily just said, oh, come on, get better. It's just not how it works. We see his eyes look lifeless. We didn't do a good job of really talking about Hagiwara's like state, but like look at his face laying in bed. He's like, everyone knows I got nearly all my troops killed and obliterated in my unit. And it's a vicious, like toxic cycle that he's going through, because he's talking to his homie, or his figment of his imagination of his homies, like the mask.
Yeah.
And he has like the wherewithal to understand, like, because he's unconsciously controlling this thing, but this thing is telling him like, come on, you gotta take care of yourself. So like deep down he knows that he needs to, it's coming out through the mask, through like the, like telling him how long you're gonna sit there and lie there sniveling. That is him portraying his best friend. But the thing is, the words he's saying is true. You know what I mean? He's trying to get him to like take care of himself, or the mask is essentially that's what it's doing, trying to get him to eat. He doesn't want him to like, kill himself over like this guilt. But it's just a very, very, heavy subject.
Yeah, man. And again, you're right. We didn't really, even though we did talk a lot about it, there's just a lot here really to unpack. And again, just give it flowers, because like that, what you just brought up, it just really kind of hit me, or it just really hit me this idea that like that is a figment of his imagination, but you would think that like at the state, like in the state that he is, those would not be the kind of words he would be telling himself. Like in a depressed state, that's not usually the kind of self-talk you see. It's a lot more negative, to say the least, right? And so this idea that it's like the last, like the last remnants of fight within him to just not completely give up on himself, and he portrays it through, like you said, like we talked about, like a figment of his imagination, like, like interpreting it as his best friend is just really powerful, because one, you know that he sees it like that because he thinks that it's probably what his friend would be telling him if he were alive, right? So it's that mixed with the idea that this guy, obviously he doesn't want to feel the way he feels. So I see it like the last bit of fight within him mixed with like him seeing it as like, that is what my best friend would tell me if he were still alive. So again, really, really good writing from Hokuzono when it comes to Ikuto Hagiwara. And that isn't to say that this is, a 10 out of 10 chapter, whichever way you feel about it, because I can also see people really, really liking this chapter and rating it a 10 out of 10. But there's really, really solid writing.
I need to meet those people then.
Yeah, well, look, man, like I said,
I'm just playing.
There's not much to hate on in this chapter. It's just in the wider context of everything that's going on, you can kind of be like, well, like, yeah, it doesn't really hold a candle to you're a wielding centipede. But in the writing department, it's a whole nother argument, but we won't really get into that. What matters is that Hokuzono doesn't fail to deliver, even if it's like a slower, like I said, chapter where we step away from the action. This is far from bad writing. This is far from a bad chapter, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's a bad chapter, and I think what like Hokuzono seemingly does is when he brings characters in, and because Kiri came in, of course, that was her first introduction. We got a lot of her story front loaded right then and there. We got her story, she made a play, and then she hasn't been really vital since. She's been in the story still. We see her on panel and she says, has dialogue here and there. And, it's, I guess Hokuzono's writing style of just like when a character, instead of like just bringing this character back to make a big play, he has like the sense to give that character like substance within that chapter, like kind of rounds it out pretty nice. It feels like holistically, it feels like this is a good chapter, but just where it's placed at in the terms of what's going on around it, it's just a bit jarring. But in a vacuum, it is good writing and all that. I agree. But I mean, that'll really do it for me. I don't have anything else.
No, I just want to say, like, I don't blame Kiri for not doing much after, those couple of chapters, considering she's now been having to babysit Hakuri. I'm cutting her some slack there, like, shit, how can you really pop off when you gotta babysit that kid? So, yeah, we like Kiri here. So
you basically gotta spoon feed him.
But no, now for real, that's off from me.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Catch y'all next week. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Let us know how you felt in the chapter, and peace.
Peace.